1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 2 lapel.
Okay, so your mics are then live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Another minute or so in the hope of a last few.
Yeah, it's surprisingly sparse.
It is. I can't say I'm overly surprised because it's borough elections.
Yeah, it was busier last time, but that was because I think it was an all-out, and there were far more people.
Was for the general, wasn't it?
Yes, sorry, I was thinking borough because we had
the generals happened since the.
It was an all-out, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we had 36 candidates overall, so there were, yeah.
And there was also more parties fielding candidates as well.
Yeah.
And that obviously generates more interest.
And you're both ready.
To say a few words to start off. Yeah?
Yes, so it's
Do
quite
you want
brief.
to use the podium, or you're welcome to come and stand on the podium?
I'm happy either way, to be honest.
From where you are?
Just, how would you prefer?
That's fine.
You're happy here or
Yeah.
put the podium?
Go in alphabetical order.
Okay.
So you,
Okay.
So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this hustings for the seat of St Faith's Ward in the Borough of Havant. As you can see, if you have any knowledge of who the local candidates are, we are joined tonight by Dan Berwick of the Labour Party and Tim Pike from the Conservative Party. Sadly, as I suspect everyone here, but not everyone online may know, the Reform Party have decided to pull back from all hustings at the present time. They did provide me with a statement to read, and I'm ever so sorry, I've left it at home. But essentially, it said that they had a bit of a rough time, in their words, at a recent hustings in Emsworth, and they have therefore decided to disengage from the hustings process in general. It is for you to make your own judgments about that. But I'm very grateful to both Dan and Tim that they're here tonight, and welcome to those joining us online as well. The plan is that I will be asking a few pre-prepared questions that you have been jotting down as you came in, but we'll also have a little bit of an opportunity for some back and forth and try to understand what our minds are on a number of subjects. But before we get into debate of any description, I've invited both candidates to answer a simple question, which is, and I've given them 3 minutes to say so, which is, why should we elect you, or rather, if they're putting it in their terms, why should you elect me as your candidate for the St Faith's Ward? We're going to go in alphabetical order, and so I'm going to ask Dan if he'd kindly address the gathering first.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, I'm Daniel Berwick. As Canon Tom has said, I'm with the Labour Party. I was elected 2 years ago in 2024 for the all-out election for Havant Borough Council. In that time, we formed a coalition of parties that I think has worked very well together. Obviously, it's only been 2 years, so I would like the opportunity to have another 2 years to complete the work that we've been doing so that it can be a full term. We need to continue on various projects that we started in the area. So we're looking for an amount of consistency so we can continue to do the work that we started. Part of that is work on Southley and the need to establish better infrastructure in that area. It's something we've made some progress in, but there's a lot of work to do for that and an uphill struggle. So we'd like the opportunity to continue to progress that. Also the High Street improvements, there's quite a few things that we're doing for Havant High Street that we can probably talk about later. So again, it's about consistency and working for Havant centrally and making sure that we can progress all of those issues that we've made a good amount of progress on, but still need to push further. So yeah, that's why hopefully you'll elect me. I've worked with probably a few of you in this room, and I hope I've sort of helped you make good progress in some of your issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim.
Good evening, everyone, friends and neighbours in Havant. Since 2024, we've seen what happens when there's no clear leadership at the top of a council. We've got a coalition of Labour, Lib Dems and Greens trying to pull the council in 3 different directions at once. Havant doesn't need political experiments or no overall control. Havant needs clear, common sense plans that keep your taxes low and services good. Conservatives in Havant have always been the party of fiscal responsibility. While others look to raise fees, expand bureaucracy, our focus remains on the bread and butter issues that affect your daily life. Our first commitment is making the streets cleaner and safer. This means working hand in hand with our Police and Crime Commissioner to ensure antisocial behaviour isn't just managed, it is stopped. It means ensuring our high streets are places where local businesses can thrive without being suffocated by red tape and higher parking charges. I believe residents are rightly concerned about our environment. Whether you think being careful with our natural resources is sensible because they're in short supply, or because of climate change, or because you come to this building regularly and you believe in protecting God's creation, it's the right thing to do. But unlike the other parties, we believe in practical approaches. We want to protect our coastline without punishing people or make it impossible for families to do things. We believe in conservation that works for people and not against them. And I really believe that new technology is the way through this, and we will be encouraging that to flourish rather than strangling the economy now, as Labour are doing. Let's talk about housing. We all know the problem because we see it every day. Young people being priced out of the streets they live in now, families squeezed into homes that are no longer suitable, home ownership slipping away from an entire generation of Havant residents. Under the current administration, house building has completely stalled. Does anybody want to tell me how many houses have been granted permission in the borough, in our ward in the last year? 1, in a back garden in Langston. Labour doubled our housing target from 450 to 900, but the target makes no difference at all if you haven't got a plan to do something about it. My pledge to you is we get our housing building on our brownfield sites, we've got many of them in the town centre here, not on our green fields like Southmere in Langston, which I'll protect. We need to help first-time buyers, expanding families, older people wanting to downsize, and social housing for the vulnerable. This year is really important for the council. We move towards a new unitary authority in 2027. The decisions made by the councillors you elect now will set the foundation for decades to come. The Portsmouth housing target is also being missed by miles, and that target's coming our way as well because there's no more land in Portsmouth to build on. So do you want a council that's built by a coalition interested in the national identity politics, or built by a Conservative team that has the experience to manage a multi-million-pound transition? We need to ensure Havant's voice isn't lost in this Hampshire-wide shuffle. We need strong local champions who know how to protect our identity. So the choice is simple this year. Vote for more uncertainty, or vote for a people and party with a track record of delivery. Vote for me, you'll get lower taxes, safer streets, and a council that actually gets stuff done, bringing back strong leadership to Havant. Let's get the borough back on track. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you. let's move on to the questions. And I've just had a quick look through, and the main question, I think, can be summed up from a number of people, but can be summed up in this simple one. What are your plans for the historic town centre of Havant? Yeah, let's go Dan first, and then Tim.
Thank you very much. So there are a few projects that we have at the moment that we're working on and that has been delivered. We've added CCTV to the high street to try and monitor and keep crime down. We've put in a vacant shop scheme so that we want to re-energise this high street. We've also brought in a town centre manager role that should be starting soon. The idea of that is that we'd have a dedicated person from the council working in the town centre. They could then work with retailers, work with the community, work with staff, and be hands-on in Havant Town Centre and Market Parade. What we're planning to do with them as well is build what we're calling a tiger team. So that is either through Norse or through one of the other sort of cleaning crews and maintenance crews, that they would have a dedicated day with that person per week, that they could then target issues that they've discovered in the week, whether that's cleaning graffiti, whether that's replacing bins, whether that's doing whatever the town centre manager has sort of highlighted as the key priority for that week for the high street. They would then work with them and they'll get that done much more efficiently than we're currently seeing from Norse. We're also refreshing the heritage trail as well. There are new plaques that are going up, and that should allow people to sort of follow the heritage of the town centre as well.
That's helpful. Thank you. Tim? Well, that's no good. We can't have that. I'll turn him up a bit. Yeah?
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Right. So I think it's more that it's turned down too much here. Tell you what, Alan, you know what you're doing with this, so I'm going to give you this. You have to appreciate, of course, you're hearing from those speakers over there. So Dan, who's on the left, is on lapel, and Tim is on head 2. Okay. All right, and that is for this sound system, rather than the main sound system. Yeah, got it? Okay. Right. I'll leave it there. Tim, please.
Okay, I think the number one thing I would do is to bring the town centre back to this part of Havant. We've got this very bizarre scheme that Labour have put forward to turn the Meridian Centre into more shops. You know, when I left office in 2023, there was 1 empty shop in West Street here. There are now 9 empty shops, plus we've got a load of vape shops, barbers and other things as well, that some of which are slightly strange. So the number one thing I would do was bring the council into the Meridian Centre. We would convert the current council offices into affordable housing, and that would drive a lot more people into the town centre. We've got empty space in the Meridian Centre. Absolutely bizarre to create more shops. We don't need them. We've got lots of empty shops already. Get more people in. That would bring the employees here who would spend money in the town centre. It'd be so much easier for residents to get to because they'll be right next to the bus station. And a number of other things. You know, the government have said, let's bring hubs for medical services and such like into our town centres. Let's use the Meridian Centre that the council owns for those purposes, rather than trying to create more empty shops.
That's helpful. One follow-up question on that, and this will be for both of you, and I'll start with you, Tim, is given what you've said about vape shops and so forth, how can we deal with them? Is it not the case that a business can open? What sort of licensing is required to make sure we have the kind of shops we would like, rather than the shops that open?
The answer is you can't.
I thought so.
So, you know, and though people have opened those shops, and if people go into them, then presumably they'll stay there. If they don't support them, they'll go somewhere else. Yeah. But there are some things in terms of licensing, and certainly I understand all of those licensing laws and such like, and if there are things that aren't being done properly in terms of selling vapes and such like, then we can bring the right people in and sort it out. But generally, what we want is the town centre to be welcoming to shopkeepers who can do things that are a bit different. And so the things like, you know, charging for Sunday parking is just bizarre. Why on earth would you want to do that? It's going to cost a fortune to police it because you have to pay officers more to work on a Sunday, and you're going to get a lot less income. Sunday is currently the second busiest shopping day if you go by the counting system in the Meridian Centre. we're now going to throw that away, and more people will go to the retail park and such like. You're not going to make any money, and you're going to hurt the town centre even more. I'll be reversing that straight away if you elect me.
Dan, the same question to you. What can we do about getting the kind of shops we like?
Thank you. So yeah, to agree with some of that, the answer is that we can't. If it's a private landlord and a private business, as a council, we cannot be dictatorial to private businesses. So we can't say, no, you can't open that type of shop. I know a lot of people probably see shops opening and assume that the council has licensed them, but unless it's a specific type of property, like it's an alcohol or that sort of thing, then no, the council can't block a private business from opening. We can, however, raise something if there's been potentially illegal activity raised to us or something that's suspicious. We can then obviously raise that to the police, and work with that. But on the Meridian Centre, we had an issue finding a client that was big enough to fill the space that Wilco left. So what we're doing is dividing that space into 4 smaller units. And I believe we already have somebody on board to actually take over one of those. And obviously, as Havant Borough Council owns the Meridian Centre, we can have a lot more control over who goes in there and what sort of business it has. So that is an area we can control. But the majority of the high street and most of Market Parade, we don't have direct control over the landlords.
Sure.
We can't dictate what businesses go in there.
Pure point of information, I understand that the changes in Wilco's will involve a corridor to reconnect North Street to the rest.
Yeah, and that was one of the key parts of it, that we need to have that access from the streets, because it doesn't get through the footfall we used to have.
Okay. So we've had a bit of a talk around the town centre. Before we move on to something else, is there anyone here who'd like to particularly ask or argue for a policy to do with the town centre? Anne, let me give you a mic, please. Thank you.
Yes, I thought what I'd ask. 2 years ago, Waterlooville Town Centre was in a really disgraceful state, and in recent times there's been a lot of investment. And although I think a lot of people felt businesses wouldn't open there, they have. And they're not all shops, there's all sorts of services that they're offering to people. How would you transfer what you've learnt from Waterlooville to our historic town centre here in Havant?
I think it's Dan's turn first, please.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, so the vacant shop scheme was something that worked well in Waterlooville. That's a scheme that we've moved over to Havant to try and encourage more people to have a go. The vacant shop scheme allows people to apply for one of the units with a reduced or, I believe, potentially no rent to begin with, which allows a business to attempt to establish themselves, to build up a business without the immediate costs that are involved. Obviously, there is a cost to the council for that, so it's not something that we can extend perpetually. But if a business can establish themselves and they work well and they're making enough profit, then they can far more easily move into a costed, rented property. So the vacant shop scheme worked very well in Waterlooville, and I think we'd look to potentially extend that as much as we can within the time the council has left, because we only have potentially up to 2 years of Havant Borough Council before it's dissolved. But we want to get as much in place for Havant before that happens and use our resources so it doesn't get swallowed up by the next authority.
Same question to you, Tim.
I think we could certainly do those things, but I would also say that we want to get a lot more activity into the town centre, because for sustainable businesses, you don't just want a one-off grant. You need conditions that will keep you going for years. So, certainly I am very strongly in favour of closing the road out here on West Street and turning it into an area where events can take place. I've been working closely with Lulu, who's at the back here as our county councillor, trying to work on those things. Making the town centre more pedestrian friendly to do events and to get more stalls and things taking place. It's really sad to see how the market's gone downhill in the last few years. When I was the councillor, it was pretty much the whole of West Street was full up. Yesterday, I counted 6 stalls. On Tuesday when I was walking through. and checking how many there were. And it's, that's a really good starting point for new businesses to try things out. And I also started the scheme of having the small kiosks in the centre of the Meridian Centre for people to try it out. And it's great that people have gone on from trying something out in there to opening a shop somewhere else. And so we can do some things as a council, but I would say even better is to try and create the conditions where businesses can thrive without needing more public money thrown at them.
Thank you. Any other town centre related questions before we move on? Grania.
Thank you very much. Tim, I'm really curious, what sort of conditions do you think would do to promote the things that you're talking about? Because I think the conditions that now exist are very different to what they were 2 years ago. And the things that you're holding up and saying, the implication is that somehow that the coalition is failing. I feel that you're not making a fair allowance for the economic climate that we now find ourselves in, which is due to many other pressures that are outside Haven's control. So please, could you tell us what the conditions that you would promote or see and be able to do in the short time that Haven has left?
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree that there are lots of things that you can blame the national government for, in terms of increasing national insurance, increasing business rates, which are absolutely, I would agree with you, outside of the council's control. But I think the number one thing is to get more people coming into the town centre to do their shopping. Putting up parking charges and such like at the moment when businesses are struggling is a really bad thing to do. So we do want to try and do less of that, but also make it an attractive place to come to with more things happening, say, at the weekends, and particularly out here. There are so many brilliant community organisation and groups doing things in Havant. We want them to encourage to do things in a visible way that that people can join in with, have a go at things. And so it's not just about buying things. So I absolutely agree with you. The days are gone when people are going to do 100% of their shopping by coming to a town centre. We have the Amazon van coming to us as much as everybody else, and but the town centre needs to be other things. So it's about doing things, meeting people. We do have some great coffee shops and cafes and those things. We want to encourage those people, and the number one thing is to get more people coming into the town centre, so more activity.
Dan, would you like to comment on that question and that whole idea?
I don't disagree with a lot of that. But I think, as Gunnar, I think was trying to say that it's societal shifts, global societal shifts, created by technology and efficiencies in warehousing and delivery that have meant the majority of what we buy can be done quicker, more efficiently and cheaper online than it can by visiting a high street. And a high street needs to develop in a way that it has a unique offering rather than just a retail offering. The problem is that as much as we may try and build nice shops, as much as we may try and build a local, good service shops and businesses, the reality is people will follow cheap and convenient. So online shopping will replace a lot of the high street. One of the criticisms that we often get, even though we can't control buildings, but one of the criticisms we often get is there's too many cafes, there's too many whatevers. And that, I think, is probably the wrong angle. There's been a lot of success with Beer to Eternity that's taken the property in Havant Park, and that was one of the council's properties. And that's been a really successful use of that building, and it's a unique business that's been attracted there, and they've flourished. We need more businesses like that in a high street. We can't rely on clothes retail and supermarket retail. That doesn't work anymore in a high street setting.
If I may just interject for a moment, I reflect that this church used to be in the dead centre of Havant. It's now very much to the east of the dead centre of Havant, which is that retail park down there. That's life. Things change, things move on. But the one thing that people often say to me is, if I'm thinking about going shopping, am I more likely to go and park down there where it's free? This is car drivers I'm talking about, of course. Or am I going to come into town and pay to park in one of the borough's car parks? I mean, a question for both of you. What's the future, do you see, understanding that the borough needs to raise revenue and that car parking is one of the few ways that it can in significant numbers. What do you think the future is for car parking as related to the centre of the town? I think it's your turn to answer first, Dan, I think.
Yeah. So I don't want to annoy or step on the toes of the coalition here, but my recommendation when we were discussing parking charges was to have a free period that all car parks could have across Havant. I understand the revenue arguments. I think we need more data as to whether or not they fully work. The council is under financial stress. Most councils are, and council tax only makes up about 75, I think, might need to check my numbers, but I think about 75% of the council's revenue is from council tax. The rest has to be from other services like car parking, and that's one of the major draws. Yeah. However, potentially, it's a myopic view. I think you need a more holistic view of what potentially a incentive here allows to happen over here. So a period of free car parking, for example, would incentivize people to shop, and that would increase the viability of businesses. It would increase the viability of the council then getting more rent coming in.
So just to be clear, you're not exactly aligned with the coalition on this?
No, I think it would be naive to blindly say I agree with everything the coalition says.
Sure.
I'm not going to do that.
That's fine, that's what coalitions are. They're an argument about different priorities. But
car parking is always a touch point, always a difficult discussion. And I don't fully agree with the model we've got.
Sure.
But now we've got it, we need the data to inform what the next move is.
Okay, that's helpful. Tim, what's your thoughts?
There absolutely needs to be a system of parking because there is not enough parking in the town centre. And if you didn't have a system of charging and controlling parking, then it would be filled up with the residents parking and nobody would come here to shop at all. So there needs to be a system. That system needs to be very easy to use. I'm pleased that we've now got systems in our car parks that are, not going to catch residents out by if you've got to put your registration number in and some of these other schemes that are really difficult to manage. So we have got a good system here, and I think we've probably got it about right in terms of the charges for coming in for shopping, because people will be spending considerably more than the parking charge. And I do want people to think, is there another way I could do this? I'm fortunate, I live around the back of the church here, I can walk into Havant in 1 minute and do my shopping, that's great. But I would love other people to think, is there another way I could do it by walking, cycling, coming by other things? And a parking charge does hopefully make people think, is there another way I could do this? Because we do want people to come by other means, because as we know, Havant Town Centre can be an absolute nightmare on a lot of days because of the parking. So there does need to be some controls, but I agree with Dan, the parking charges need to sort of fit in with the overall strategy and not be sitting there as a revenue raiser just because Havant is a successful place and it's funding the rest of the borough because of our success.
Thank you. We're going to move on, but I think I would just make the observation. One of you commented that, of course, shopping habits are changing. That's very true. And we have an Amazon warehouse now as part of that process, don't we, within the town? Yes. But I would just make the point that I think people still want to go shopping. And my evidence for that is any time I try and find a parking space down by Next and Marks and Spencer and Pets at Home. I don't think the days of the shop are over, and I still want to encourage retail within this area as well. But I think we must move on because we've had half an hour on the town centre, so we need to look at some other topics. I'll come back to you, Grania. This is from.
Well, I was just going to make an observation.
An observation. Go on then. Please use the mic. Yeah.
Just to say that given that you have a cemetery here, you're always going to be a dead centre.
So funny. Okay, we're going to move on a wider spectrum now to a question from Pat Brooks, who typed it out before she got here. Who's Pat? Oh, sorry. Hello, Pat. There we are. All right. So that one, I'm really impressed that you thought it in advance. Pat says, Havant is surrounded by sensitive areas for nature, both on land and in our harbours. How can these be protected, given the government's very high annual targets for new homes to be completed in the area? Tim first, I think.
So firstly, I'd say the government targets are too high. If you take Havant as an example, the population of Havant grows by about 400 people a year. just because people are living longer. So, you know, effectively, if you're planning to live longer than your parents did, we need more houses, and we probably need, you know, the population is about 400 a year. So I would say we probably need around that number of houses just to house the existing population. We don't need the 900 that Labour are trying to foist on us. 400 is about right. And most of those could be delivered with our brownfield sites around the town centre. We don't need to be building on lots of the greenfields, and we need to go up in the town centre as well. There's been various proposals over the years to increase the height of buildings in the town centre. We should be doing that. That will bring more people into the town centre for exactly the reasons we were just talking about. So I would say, in terms of the pressure on greenfields for housing, for the most part, we really don't need it. We need to be building a lot more dense building works within our town centre, and let's prioritise that and work with the developers to do that.
So build more densely,
yes.
to summarise what you've just said. And Dan?
Thank you. Yes, we have been progressing similar to that. Bolbeck car park was raised to the ground over the past couple of years. That has now gone to tender, and we have a builder. I'm not sure if it's commercially sensitive still, so I'm not sure I can say who it is. But it has, is it Guinness? Yeah, it was. So Guinness has been allocated. It's Churchill. Okay, sorry, it's...
Okay, we know it. We know that for a fact. Great.
So that's Churchill now have that land, and they will be building sort of a residential block in there. So that's taken a building that was attracting a lot of antisocial behaviour, a lot of graffiti, a lot of issues around that, and that will be converted into something useful. So we will have denser residential property there. We've also bought one building in Market Parade, which we'll be using for social housing. So we'll be converting that and allowing for more social housing availability. That will save the council a lot of money from having to put people in B&Bs and having to do emergency accommodation for people that come to the council as homeless. There are other areas of building that's happening. Some of it's private conversation that has a lot of focus, but hasn't actually come to the council yet in terms of planning. One of those is the Southley sites, which is the gap between Warblington and Emsworth. That's in discussion at the moment. Blore are proposing to build there. And one of the things that we've stipulated is the protection of green spaces around that area. Blore's last plan only specifies building on what is currently the agricultural tilled areas, which are areas of low biodiversity anyway. And the areas of greenery that we still got are being maintained. And we've demanded that the south strip of that along the A27 is retained, so that any future work that we need to do for any link road that we can agree can be done there. So there are large building projects going on at the moment, both in the High Street and elsewhere in the borough. But no, we are not meeting the government's targets for building, and our local plan is making the case that it's an appropriate amount for a borough like Havant.
So you would agree with Tim at around the 400 number, would you? So I would provisionally agree that if that's the population increase, and I don't have those specific population increase figures personally, but if that is the population increase, and that includes people wanting to move to, say, the Portsmouth to Waterloo train corridor on the A3, if that's the case, then I think it should live up to that. That's helpful. What I am observing here is quite a lot of agreement between both of you on a number of issues. So I'm going to pose you a question in a moment that I'm hoping that you'll be able to tell me where you differ as parties to help people make their decision, yeah? But before we do that,
empty properties
yes,
in town.
Go on.
I feel that building houses between Havant and Warblington on the fields is not as good as using all the empty properties in town, the old buildings, the old garages. There's so many empty properties. It looks very bad as you walk through town. Is there anything the council can do to sort out these properties? It would make it look better, and it would be houses for people. There are 2 brand new houses just off South Street where Tim lives. And somebody built them, and they've not been lived in for 5 years. More.
Thank you. I've lost track. I think it's Dan, then Tim.
So if it's a private building with private ownership, I don't believe there's much we can do unless planning.
You can.
Some
councils do. Hastings is the one I know.
Okay. So there's no powers I explicitly know that we have or utilise that will allow us to, but obviously if it is possible, then I don't think is a problem looking into that.
Okay, Tim?
There are things you can do. Firstly, we brought in double council tax on empty properties when I was in charge. And that had some success. It's actually not that many in Havant generally. I think last time I checked there's about 100 actually just sitting empty, ready properties, but that's across the whole borough. So yes, yeah, there's some here and there's a few in other places. The best tool that I've found to get things dealt with is untidy land orders. Because, you know, if it's particularly the problem is with absentee landlords, if you remember the stretch we had behind the bus station that was derelict for years and years, and it was a real nightmare because the chap who owned it lived in London or Dubai or somewhere and didn't want to do everything. What we did, what I ended up doing was getting the council to issue an untidy land order every time we possibly could, anytime we found anything, so that it was causing them the maximum aggro for sitting there with not doing anything. Because you're right, there aren't many, and Dan's right, there are not that many powers to make private land owners do things, but that's one of the things you can. And we did get it cracked in the end, and the development has been built, it's occupied, there's the housing above is, again, like Dan's saying, used for people who need temporary housing. Great, it's been done, but it's blimmin' hard work, but there are things that can be done.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on housing policy particularly? Alan?
We get central government imposes unrealistic targets on us. What are the penalties when we say we can't do that?
Can either of you answer that? It's more
I think
a policy question.
Yeah. So the risk we have is that our local plan is rejected by central government. If the central government reject our local plan, we don't have anything to fall back on to prevent people building as they wish. We can put far less conditions on a proposal if we haven't established what the restrictions are in the local plan. So we need to very carefully, and it's a difficult negotiation, but the case needs to be made that Havant isn't appropriate for the quantity of houses that they've put on us. It is over double the amount that we think we can deliver in the area, and that's at a push. So I really don't think the government target for Havant is realistic. I don't think it's appropriate. And the only way really to meet it is to build a lot of tower blocks, really, which I'm not sure would be good for the area.
Alan's question is, would there be a penalty if we don't meet?
The penalty could be enforced targets.
The penalty has already happened, that the council has been found wanting, and it's increased the target by 25%. Because we're not, you know, there's a test that's done every year, the housing delivery test, and if you haven't delivered enough houses during the past year, the target goes up. And so the government has put the target up again because the council hasn't delivered the houses in the past year. So there's no way out of it at the moment. And so what happens is this thing called the tilted balance that the housing system uses. And so it means that developments that you would have been able to say no to in the past, the council has to say yes to, and which is no good to anyone. So the main thing we need to do is to free up the system, get some houses being built, because then we won't be under this penalty system where effectively your target gets increased even further.
Okay, thank you. Other housing related questions? Thank you.
Hi, both. Just a quick question. We're Langston residents. Could you both clarify what your plans are for the Southmore field on Langston? And secondly, about housing on Hayling, to turn right out of my road is an absolute nightmare now. If the housing goes ahead, I have no idea how I'd ever get to turn right out of my road. So what are your plans?
Thank you. It's got to be Tim first, I think. I'm sorry.
Absolutely no development on Southmere Field. There is no need for it, and it's not the right place for it, and exactly as you say, it's you know, it doesn't work in terms for so many things. It doesn't work from anywhere, including the fact there's a main gas pipeline right through the middle of it, so you can't actually build on a good chunk of it anyway. So it's not the right place for housing. Absolutely agree with you. I think there probably are places on Hayling that are sustainable, because actually a lot of people on Hayling, over half the residents are retired. They're not going on and off the island all the time anyway. So if you had the right sort of housing on Hayling that is for people that are not going to be driving on and off in the rush hour, then actually may well be sustainable. And I think there are sites on Hayling that would be sustainable for housing, but I'd agree with you that you've got to get the road infrastructure right. I came up with a plan of how you could spend a relatively small amount of money and make a big difference to the road on and off Hayling, which unfortunately other parties stopped. But I think there is some things that could be done, and if you spent a small amount of money, again in Langston, by putting the right turns in the right places and that sort of thing, and making there's places where people could safely cross the road, I think there are some things you could do to make it better. But certainly in Langston itself, definitely no more development.
Tim, sorry, Dan.
It's okay. Langston is a difficult area. I think any extra traffic load causes a large issue, especially with just one entrance on and off the island. We have, I believe, reduced massively the amount of build allowance we will allow on Hayling Island. There are some previously allowed or previously passed through planning developments that can't be stopped. They've previously gone through planning before we were here, and they will go ahead because legally there's nothing we can do about those. But we don't really want any other major developments to occur on Hayling, especially with just the one route on and off. Recent events have shown how devastating that is to the area, and that's always been true. I live in Havant, and I have taken hours to get here from Cosham because something's happened on Hayling Island, and that's completely blocked the traffic in every direction, all the way to Portsmouth, all the way to Chichester. And really adding any housing load that increases traffic on the island would exacerbate that.
Speaking as a motorcyclist, I recommend get a motorbike. It's the best way onto Hayling and off in a hurry. But housing. Any more housing-related questions? Yep, go on, Anne. Yep, please.
Yes, housing's actually my field of expertise, and I've been pushing. It's actually the county council for 20 years now to have extra care housing on the Oak Park site. And I heard last week they've now completely pulled the idea of the 90 extra care homes that they were going to have on there. If you're elected, what would you do to try and get some progress on that site, which has been empty since the school was demolished?
Dan, I think.
Well, I would happily work with you personally, Anne, on that as well, and progress those plans. As the Borough Council, we obviously wouldn't be able to strictly do that ourselves, but working with the County Council, that's something we can try and push the plans for. Obviously, there's an election for both the county and the borough this month, so we need to see who the administration is, who the local councillors are, but we need to work together closely between different authorities to do things that affect everybody. There's not always been the most sort of engaged relationship between the different tiers of authority, and that unfortunately causes us to have issues with progressing things that impact everybody. With the Borough Council and the County Council having two tiers of government, we end up having areas that touch other areas, that one's owned by the county, one's owned by the borough, and where they link, it's really, really hard to make progress sometimes. It's really, really hard to engage with other people's budgets and get things to move that would help you. So I think there needs to be a closer authority relationship that allows that sort of Venn diagram where it's grey in the middle to actually work more closely on things. So I suppose, to put it very simply, to try and work a lot closer with the county council, not just on issues like that, but on everything that affects ownership between both authorities.
Thank you. Tim?
I'd agree with you, Anne, it's not good enough. And I've pushed the county council a number of times, and I know they've had issues. They've appointed developers a number of times, and then people have pulled out. We know there's been all sorts of issues in construction with inflation and such like, making it really difficult for housing companies to make plans and then bid for things and then build things. But I would be pushing the county council to say either do it or give it to somebody else who does want to do it, and don't just sit on it. We can't afford to have areas of brownfield land in Havant that have not been used. They need to be built on. So I would be pushing some extra care. Absolutely, we need some, and there's some great facilities that have been built around the county. We need some of those here. But if we're not going to do that, let's get on and do something else with it, not just leave it alone.
Thank you. I'm going to push on from housing and back to that more political question. And I'm reading here from a submitted question, really just to help our voters get a sense of the difference between you. So the question submitted was, can you tell us 2 key local issues important specifically for St Faith's, where Labour differs from Conservative, and why people should vote for one rather than the other? Do you want a moment to think about it? So it's 2 local issues specific to St Faith where Labour differs from Conservatives. I'm going to start with you, Tim. I think it's your turn. And why people should vote for one rather than the other.
I think I've already highlighted a couple where we're very distinctively saying something different. In terms of our town centre, don't build more shops. We don't need them. Everybody knows that. Let's turn the town centre back into the town centre of Havant, rather than having bits of the town centre functions scattered around in the civic offices and the medical centre and all sorts of other places. I will be bringing the town centre back to the centre of Havant, and let's use those other areas for things that they could be used for more effectively. I suppose the other thing, so my message to you is I'm about getting stuff done. That's what I do in my job. That's what I did previously as a councillor. I'm not going to be spending my time on Facebook saying how marvellous I am. You won't find anything of that. I'm not spending my time on social media. I'm out there talking to people, getting stuff done. And whether it's your planning issues, whether it's your neighbour issues, whatever it is, I'll be out there fixing stuff, getting stuff done to the large number of things that have just stagnated over the last 2 years.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. So on that second point, we're not going to differ too much. I don't spend too much time on social media. I probably underuse it, to be fair. There's probably more I should do. But I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook either.
I feel like you're both having a dig at me because I spend hours on social media, but that's another story.
But yeah, I do think that one of the problems we have on the high street is larger units no longer sustain businesses of the size that they need. So we need to reduce those units down to more plentiful but smaller units that can allow smaller businesses to flourish. So things that can't establish themselves on something with a footprint of Wilko. By allowing smaller units, we give the option for smaller businesses to pay less and establish themselves without having that massive overhead.
I'm just going to say, I think people are forgetting that one of the biggest powers the councillors have is their sort of convening power to make stuff happen. And so it's not written in legislation, but effectively you have the power to get people round a table and try and sort things out. That's what I'm about. If you think back to Langston Technology Park, we had a developer wanting to spend £30 million improving the buildings there and 2 trees in the way. And everybody said, and various people saying, you can't do it, there's 2 trees and protected trees in the way, what are you going to do about it? So we sat everybody down in a big room and said, well, if the developer plants 1 million trees instead of these 2, is that good enough? And they said, yes. Right, so we know. So no trees is bad, 1 million trees is good. Where is the line where it goes from bad to good? Yeah. We eventually got there to 17 trees per one that was taken out.
Right.
So you'll now find, if you go to Langston Technology Park, there's a nice copse of trees out on the northwest corner of the 34 trees that were planted instead of the 2. We've got that £30 million investment. You've seen all the new buildings there, lots of safeguarded jobs, new jobs, all those things. That's what councillors can do if they're about getting stuff done.
For want of a tree, a project was nearly lost.
Yes.
Yeah. Dan, I gave Tim the right to come back to you on that. Do you want to just come back one more time?
Yeah, I mean, I've answered the call to problems big and small. So there's I wouldn't sit on my hands about any issue either. That's obviously a very specific example, but obviously I can't share that example because that isn't something that's happened whilst I've been there. But one of the main issues that we're really working hard on, which is an uphill struggle and something that, if you're a betting man, you probably wouldn't bet for it. But we're trying to improve the infrastructure for any further developments on Southleigh to allow for better connectivity to the A27. And that's something that you can't do as a borough council because it's going to cost a lot of money. But I've pulled everyone together, neighbouring councils and authorities and MPs from Chichester to discuss the entire route of the A27. I've been pulling this all together to push that plan, build a strategy around it and push it forwards. So
it's just not true. The current coalition took out the policy that said we needed a road there. We had published a planning policy that said you must have the road for Southley. They watered it down to say there would only be a public transport and footpath and cycle route. I'll show you the documents afterwards if anybody wants to see it, but it's just not true. The council sets the planning policies that the developers have to follow. Let's set some firm policies that the road is a requirement for that development.
it is true. I'm not lying. It is true. We're pushing.
I know you're trying to, but your job as a council is to set the strategy and policy of the council. The officers then put that into action. You set a policy that is different to the one that I set, which is that you don't need a road, and therefore the developers haven't put in a road. It's not surprising.
We haven't done that.
No, sorry. I will show you afterwards.
Hang on.
Sorry. I will show you afterwards the documents. It is your policy.
So Blore have proposed that. Blore have been trying to block it.
You put into the local plan to say you didn't need the road. Therefore, the developers have not put in the road. It's that simple. No, it's not true. It's not true. I'll show you the document afterwards.
In the absence of any documents here to prove this debate one way or the other.
We will put it online afterwards for anybody here to see.
Yeah, we'll need to move on.
The previous local plan that was failed by the government inspectors, or the new one that's not yet submitted. Right. There's a detail that is not yet submitted in the local plan. So
okay. Okay. All right. We hear that and respect it. But as I say, we don't have documents in front of us, so we can't judge
you wanted some
one way or the other. I did want some differences. Thank you very much indeed. Right.
But regardless of what's in the local plan, I'm not going to stop trying to get that link road, regardless.
Okay. We have a few minutes left, and we've, I think, answered most of the questions that came up on paper. But as we've aired a number of issues, I want to just offer the opportunity for a couple more questions. Sue first, and then I'll come to you, sir. Oh, I think I might have switched it off as I handed it to you. That was clever, wasn't it? There we are.
So far, we've heard you speak about what you do in council, your business proposals, your regeneration, but neither of you have spoken about linking up with your constituents, your residents in your ward. Where do you see that as featuring in your role as a councillor? And what is your availability to listen and act on those ward residents' concerns?
Dan first, I think.
Thank you. So since we've been in, we've held multiple surgeries with the public. We've had multiple gatherings about specific topics such as Southley and the build plan, and we've held with the leader of the council, who's also one of the councillors in this ward. We've had, I think it must be 4 or 5 specific large events and lots of smaller events. As an individual councillor for casework, I'm always available to speak to people, and I often, very regularly, meet up with either small or larger groups of people to specifically go through issues that are raised with me. We also produce a quarterly to 6-monthly newsletter that tells everybody what we're doing and also has information on there to contact us to discuss anything that we've sort of explained that we're currently doing in the council. So I have complete open, and with the exception of when I'm with my children or doing sort of other activities, if there's available time, I'm always available for the residents, and always have been since I've been here.
Tim?
Thank you. So I'm out and about in the town every day. As you know, I live in South Street and the back of the church here, taking my children to and from school, using the shops and services and all the rest of it. But I actually found when I was a councillor, actually working with the individual residents with their issues was probably the most fulfilling part of the role. And of course, it's the bit you talk about least, because it's usually somebody's personal problem that is not there to be discussed, particularly with regard to housing issues, helping young families who are in the wrong sort of house and they can't work out which bit of paper it is, you've got to fill it in. you know, going up to the civic offices with them and helping them fill in the right bit of paper in front of the right person to get what they need. And you know, I really enjoyed making a difference to people's lives, you know, and you really could with things like housing problems and that sort of thing, or the planning issue or a noise issue or whatever it is. So I'm absolutely committed to, you know, going to the people when they need their help and addressing their issues.
Thank you. Sir, you had a question.
Yeah, well, just to follow up from the question that I asked earlier about how you distinguish yourselves, Conservative and Labour, in relation to two issues. I didn't really hear any significant point of distinction, except that one of you thought you would be more efficient and vigorous than the other in pursuing essentially the same policies. This just comes across to people as the unit party, and no wonder people are so disengaged from politics, because they can't really see the difference between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. What do you say about that?
Tim first.
I think from what I perceive, that I think it's a good thing that the Conservatives and Labour Party both play by the rules and follow the rules, you know, particularly with regard to elections and all the rest of it. I think there's obviously things that myself and Dan would agree with about how we do the best for the residents, how we go about doing things. I just think it's absolutely appalling what Reform are doing in terms of not playing by the rules. You've all probably received 5 bits of literature through the door telling you why to vote Reform.
I'm going to pause you there, because Reform are not here to speak for themselves.
I'm talking about why,
okay.
Why somebody might perceive that we're similar. It's because you're getting a message from another party. You know, you've had 5 bits of paper through the door. We can't do that because we play by the rules and follow the expenses limits. They send them out from national headquarters because that manages to avoid the expense limit. And therefore, you've got 5 bits of paper. You'll probably get one from me, probably one or, you know, however many we can physically deliver ourselves. So I think it is important to say that, you know, I appreciate that we may look similar in some ways, because we want to make things happen by following the rules and adjusting the council's strategies, policies, and the way you do things to hopefully make it work as well as it can for residents.
Dan?
Yeah, I think this is where things vary between councillors and people like parliamentarians. Most councillors are effectively overclocked local volunteers that have put themselves forwards to try and do something for where they live. Most issues that you have in a constituency are apolitical. They're issues residents have, their degradation of high streets, their issues of cleanliness. These have 1 or 2 obvious solutions that no matter which party you're from, you're going to come up with a similar idea or a similar way to fix it. The individuals probably come up with slightly different individual differences, but very, very few issues are actually party related. So no matter which party you're from, whether it's Conservative, Labour, Reform, or even one of the further edged parties, when it actually comes down to things you do in your constituency, the party really doesn't come into it very much. You end up working with individuals, their issues. As long as you deal with people compassionately, empathetically, and actually try and see their issue and resolve it, I think the entire idea of party politics gets stripped away. It only comes into focus in times like this, when you're vying with your local group to obviously be the one that's elected. That's the only time that it really becomes party political, and occasionally in the council offices, but I don't like that.
It is definitely a tension of our system, isn't it? That those national labels don't always apply easily to local issues, which are held in common by most people.
Yes, and I assume it's the same with Conservatives. I don't want to make assumptions, but with Labour, the parliamentary side is very arm's length. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't discuss with them what they're going to do. So national decisions are completely detached from local parties.
I think there are some local principles that that we tend to follow. Like, my principle would be, let's have the council doing more and more when other people can do it better. So let's not stamp on community groups and youth organisations and churches and all the other people who do brilliant work by the council stepping in and spending public money on doing something that's done better by somebody else. So I won't be saying the council is going to do this, and this, and spending more of your money. I'm going to be saying, let's find the groups that are best placed to do those things. Let's set them free to do it, rather than the council just doing more and more things ourselves.
you want to come back on that? Are you aware of occasions where the council has wanted to take over from other groups?
Not that I know of. In fact, we've been supporting the creation of local groups, and we've wanted there to be more community groups. Some of them have, through their own internal reasons, sort of failed, which in my opinion it isn't good for an area. I wouldn't say it's a catastrophe, but it is a detriment to an area that's represented by residents. As councillors, you cannot get to every part of a ward. You cannot see everything that's going on the moment it happens. So you rely on residents to report to you the things that have occurred. And residents' groups are very good at also establishing their block of area, or their area, whether it's residential or the high street. They're very good at knowing the day-to-day goings-on and raising that.
Thank you. I'm going to give you both an opportunity just to have 2 more minutes to...
You did have one more question, Tom.
Was there one more question? Was there? Yes, please, go on. Let me please use the mic so that those at home can hear, if nothing else. Thank you.
I have 2 young sons who are going to be voting this year. I don't tell them who to vote for because it's not an extra vote. How would you persuade an 18 and 19-year-old that your party is the one to be voting for? I'm passionate that they should be voting, but who should they vote for?
Good question. Thank you. I've lost track. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Toss a mental coin.
I think... Sorry?
Toss a mental coin.
A mental coin says Dan. All right.
One thing we have done with some people that requested it is that we've got people involved in some of the work that we do in casework, as long as it's not too sensitive. It would be good to engage with the youth. It would be good to engage with schools and show them what we do in council. Again, when it comes to local work, I think just showing them energy, showing them sort of the passion that we've got for improving our areas. I'm not going to say that's not going to come from any other councillor, but yeah, there's also, when it does come down to party, there's principles. Sort of democratic socialism, for example, as a principle for Labour. That's probably somewhere where we differ. I care about the area. I would hope that you would consider voting for me because what we do aligns with your principles. I've lived in this area. I have 3 children as well. 2 of them go to Warblington now, 1 goes to Bosmere. Part of the reason I became a councillor for this area was because of the decline I saw in the schools. I saw a lot more mental health issues with the youth that my children were experiencing at school through others. And just a compassion for the area and the way people are treated is core to what I want to see for everybody. I think you don't want to get too emotional or you don't want to get too personal in something like this, but I do care a lot for people, and I struggle when other people struggle. So I always want the best outcome for everybody, and when that doesn't happen, I don't go away feeling very good about it.
Okay. Thank you.
There are lots of national policy reasons I could recite as to why I believe a Conservative agenda would be better for you, but I'm not going to cover all those now. In terms of locally, the number one things we could do is to get houses being built so that your sons can actually live here if they want to, hopefully buy a house in the future, which they won't be able to until we get houses being built. And the other thing I would really pledge is I work with our schools and colleges. I do a lot of this already. We've had a really good relationship with Havant and South Downs College in terms of getting the sorts of opportunities for training and skills for the types of businesses that are in this area, because there are some absolutely brilliant businesses and jobs here, just the businesses don't shout very loudly about them. If you think what Lockheed Martin are doing at Langston Technology Park, for example, amazing jobs. We need the college here delivering the courses that equip people to take those jobs. And so at the moment, lots of people are driving in from East Hampshire or Winchester to Langston Technology Park. We need to equip the young people here to get the jobs that are here. So my pledge would be to work particularly with our college so that any youngsters can get the training they need to get a really good job in Havant and therefore be able to live in Havant.
Okay. Time is against us. I'm going to invite you both, starting with you, Tim, to just add any closing remarks, things you wish you had had the opportunity to say and haven't perhaps had the chance to do so.
I suppose what I'm hoping you'll take away from this is that I'm about getting stuff done rather than dither and delay that we get from our Prime Minister, but unfortunately we see here as well. Since I left the council 3 years ago, what have we seen? No progress with the sea defence at Langston, no progress in the town centre, no new play equipment in Havant Park, the wall pushed over at Havant Park, nothing happens. Empty space in the Meridia Centre, still only just coming up with ideas. I'm about getting stuff done. My pledge to you is, if I'm elected on the 7th of May, I'll be listening to you, getting stuff done, and you'll notice the difference within months rather than the years it's taking at the moment.
Thank you. Dan?
Obviously, we inherited a council after 20 odd years of another party that ran it. I believe we've made a lot of good progress in the High Street, in accelerating the local plan, which up until now has been repeatedly rejected. So there hasn't been a local plan that's been accepted in the previous administration. So we are hopeful and working with the government to get that accepted, which would establish a lot of the groundwork that we need to improve Havant that hasn't happened in the past 20 odd years. There's also the sword of Damocles that's hanging over us, which is local government reorganisation. Havant Council and Hampshire County Council, unless things change, effectively have 2 years left of life before it moves on to another authority. This will be the last election for both the borough and the county, and next year we will have a shadow council election that will elect the new authority in to, after the first year, take on the responsibilities of both tiers of government into that new single tier. So we have effectively a year to get things done and progress what we've already progressed. Restarting things that we've already got in motion, that have been 2 years in motion, will be so disruptive that by the time we start hitting LGR in a year's time, we would lose that. So what we need to do is we need to continue to deliver on what's already been started, the improvements to the High Street, the manager for the High Street, improving the properties we've already purchased, like Market Parade, getting those set so that Havant has assets that the new authority can take over. Because if we don't invest in those assets, then we'll lose them. It will all get absorbed. Our money will just be spread across Hampshire. So we need to make sure that in the next year, we use our money wisely and we build assets in Havant that will last us beyond this council.
Thank you very much indeed. I just want to say to both of you, thank you for putting yourself up for election. Thank you for what you have both done as public servants in your offices over the years. I know, Tim, you've been out of office for the last 12 months, but we all know how hard you worked for the area too. And Dan, the work you've done this year. I'm immensely appreciative of both of you and of what you do. And I'm immensely appreciative of all of those who are committed to politics in this town, who are here with us as well. All of you are, in my view, just amazing people, and I love the amount of energy you give to this town, the commitment you give. You don't always agree, but then who does? And I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. But I'm guessing that both of you would be happy to just stay around and have a little chat with folks who might want to catch you on a one-to-one. But for now, can we please show our appreciation to both our candidates? And you can choose either rapiers or pistols outside. We'll do it out there. Okay. Bless you both.
Thank you.